Hey, Taysir here, back to you again since yesterday. I feel like I missed you a little bit. All right, so I've been looking for a job, and I mentioned that yesterday, and I still don't have a job. And it hasn't been easy. I've been looking and trying to apply everywhere for like a month, and things are not looking good at all because of the pandemic. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe something is missing in my CV. But then when I looked around, asked some friends, they were having the same issues. So luckily for us, Brain Bar has the solution, and they got me someone that I can have a live one-on-one conversation with, who can tell us what to expect in the days to come in the labor market. So here with us today, Human Capital Advisory Services Leader at Deloitte, Dr. Udo Bohdal-Spiegelhoff. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd like very much to be with you.
I'm so happy to have you, and that's a really long name. You have no idea how much time it took me to get it right.
You know, I can tell you it's after my marriage many years ago. So Bohdal is my maiden name, if you want. But you can call me Udo. That's the easiest, I would say.
Cool. I bet playing Uno with you is pretty fun.
Okay.
All right. So you work in the field of human capital. What is that exactly?
Well, actually, in the past, human capital was a term which was not liked very much because it sounded so capitalistic. But in fact, nowadays in the future of work, people reflect on that a little bit more in a positive way. Because at the end, what we want to do is we want to make sure that people in an organization, with all they bring to an organization, are not treated as costs. They are treated as investments, as assets, as the essence of an organization's success. Growth, profit, social impact. You name it, all of those areas. That's what human capital is about.
That's great. So right now, what are the most important trends that you might be seeing in your field?
Well, there are a couple of trends, and I would say you can sum it up in two main themes. The first one is that technology is everywhere. I had to smile about the Deloitte video just at the beginning, where artificial intelligence, robot, automation, Siris, Alexas, they're everywhere. They basically invade our personal and professional life. That's one thing. But the key question here, and we see this in the trends, is how can you humanize work again? So how can you bring back the human aspects into the technology in order to really tap into the full potential? Because today, those are different tracks, different stories.
Well, I guess with all this going on, there must be a set of skills needed in order to kind of succeed and also be more employable. So what do you think as a young adult right now trying to find a job, what do you think the skills that I should be working on so that I can guarantee that I'm more employable on the labor market, regardless of the fact that I'm a woman and that's less employable according to statistics?
Yeah, statistics sometimes tell two different stories. You're right. Well, the good news is you don't have to be a technology expert, right?
Awesome.
Because the good thing is about the generations we live in, that we grew up with technology. You know, we use it in our daily life. Think about how the internet and the smartphones have revolutionized the way we interact, communicate with each other, the way we plan our vacation travels, the way we get mobile, the way we do things. So that's on the one hand quite easy. We shouldn't be afraid really of that technology. The other good news is that the skills you really need to develop, you have already developed during your studies, during your life so far, because those are skills which have to do with things like empathy. We have to do with things like communication, listening to each other. They have to do with things like cognitive skills, analyzing a problem from different perspectives, tapping into the unknown by experimenting new things and trying out how the situation changes. Those are things we actually learned as a child in kindergarten. In primary school, somehow through the schooling system, it got a little bit watered down again. So we have to recover them again and bring them up to the norm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that whether or not we get training throughout our life, I think if eventually you get a job, maybe your company can help you kind of unlock your potential. So how can a company help unlock human potential in general?
I think one big theme is that the company authentically and honestly defines a purpose, what they stand for. Why do they exist? And if I say a purpose-driven organization is important, it's not like just having a mission statement. That's not enough. Mission statements are just words. It is about having a purpose which really creates a larger social impact beyond the pure financial impact. I'm not saying that financial impact is wrong, but if you use your commercial impact in order to create a much broader social impact, that's the purpose people are looking for. And if you then manage to bring the purpose into, everything you do in your operations, in your processes, in your values, if you bring them into your goal setting, if you bring them into the way you recruit, select, promote people, then you're absolutely on the right track. But it has to be authentic, because otherwise people don't believe you.
Of course. So I would like to ask our audience to please send in their comments whenever they feel like, because you're here to answer our questions, right? So otherwise, why did we invite you? But before we move to any comments, I would like to ask you about organizational culture. Is it a buzzword? Like, will we be seeing any substantial change?
Well, culture at the end is what people believe, and based on their beliefs, how they behave. Because the behaviors they show then is nothing else than the output of a changing mindset. Because nobody can see a mindset. You cannot open up, the brain and look, the mindset has changed. But what you can see is the output of a changed mindset, which are new behaviors. And people change their behaviors if they believe that something else is changing in the organization. And that really is what culture drives forward. So organizations who play around with purpose-driven context, they really influence the culture, but they don't influence the culture top down, as it was done maybe in 10, 15 years in the past. They really let it influence by the employees themselves. That's why agile organizations are really on the top of their success, because that's what they do. There is no way that you can structure a culture of an agile organization top down.
Great. Well, Balázs decided to send us a comment. Hey, Balázs. He's asking, what will be the most important skill in the future, or skills?
In my personal point of view,
Yes.
Empathy, to be honest. Empathy is the most important trait you have to develop and foster. That's really important. And the other skill you can really learn and develop for yourself is remain curious and communicate in the right way with people. That means really that when you communicate, it's not about that you're sending all the time your messages and how great you are and your superpowers. It's that you listen behind the interest of what people really motivates.
Absolutely.
If you develop those two skills, you will be blended in every job you will do, and you will love every job you do.
I absolutely agree. I think those skills would help actually coordinate with others and help make you a good team player, but also even in your social life. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So speaking of leaders, actually, what is an ideal boss like these days? What are we expecting from future leaders?
An ideal boss, that is a very interesting question, because there is not such a role model. In the world we are today, which is, characterized by, I would say, a high magnitude of changes, an enormous wave of new technology coming in. I mean, technology is renewing itself every 18 months. So there's no way that you can keep pace with that. If you think you know the latest app, you're already outdated, because there is already 3 new apps coming out. So the skill set of leaders in that type of world is to trust in their own skills. They really should know what they're really good at. They should have an appetite to experiment and remain calm in the midst of the storm, because if the situation is very chaotic, there is no recipe. So every step that gets you into a direction where you learn more is the right step. And if you go a step where you think, I didn't learn more here, or I didn't like the impact of my step I just made, then you learned about that and you take a step into the opposite direction. So those are skill sets of a leader, which is very important. And of course, communicate. Leaders really in the past they became leaders because of their expertise in their subject matter field. Who cares? It's all about that you communicate, understand your team, understand the individuals, what they need in order to bring their own personal best to play. That's what it is.
Absolutely. It's really crucial to actually learn from your failures and use them in order to kind of pave your way into success. Absolutely. So we saw the Deloitte spot there, and you talked a lot about AI and digitalization. So what are the trends that we're going to be seeing there? Are we going to be having less jobs? Are we going to Like, are we supposed to learn new things just to keep up with what's happening, or what's up?
I don't think we will have less jobs. I think we will have plenty of new jobs, and we will have plenty of jobs being different than today. The thing is, talking about AI, let's take this as an example. And I think the example of the Australian Navy is maybe a good one. They have used artificial intelligence as a co-worker. So basically, it's not sitting as a machine in the next room. It's part of their team meetings, like you would have an Alexa sitting on your table, basically, and you're asking Alexa for the opinion or for some data. So that will change the way how we interact. I mean, think about also the COVID-19 situation, the way, Zoom technology, Skype technology, all those different technologies we used changed the way we interacted with each other. Not everything is good, don't get me wrong. There are some challenges we have to be aware of, but honestly, we were surprised how good things worked.
That's really interesting. It reminds me there's a really popular series called The Good Place. There was this robot called Janet, and they would just give her the most ridiculous things and she would do them. Like, I was really curious to see what, like, the actual application of that in real life. So you mentioning such an example, and also yesterday we had a guest who mentioned that they had a robot at work and they celebrated their birthday. I was like, what? So that was definitely very interesting. So we talked about the design.
Well, it can get weird. It can get weird if you have an artificial coworker.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine, to be honest. Like, I'm glad that, like, right now in Brain Bar we're all human beings, no robots. We just have a really cute office dog, and that's pretty much all. So I'm content with what we have right now.
But how do you know that I'm not an animated chatbot? And
okay, I'm
in 10,
scared
15
now.
years you wouldn't realize maybe the difference.
Absolutely. And do you think, we actually also talked about this yesterday, but like, do you think it's scarier if the robot looks like a human being, or do you think it'll be better to make robots look like actual robots? I just want to get your personal take on this.
It depends on the context, to be honest. They don't have to look like human beings, really. There are a couple of studies out who investigate in which context it makes sense. So, for instance, in situations in hospitals where you need a lot of empathy, it's funny enough more the voice, the tone of the voice the robot is producing rather than how it looks like. It still has to look like in a kind of, let's say, humanoid shape, but doesn't need automatically to have a real face, look like an android. It's not like Mr. Data in Star Trek.
I gotta tell you something. I haven't seen Star Trek yet, but don't tell anyone. Okay?
That's my generation, don't worry. That's my generation, the old Star Trek movies.
I'll probably go back. It's a classic, so I should definitely take a look. So actually, we have a comment from Judith. Sia. So she asked, how does a good CV look like in the 21st century? What is your first interest when you see a candidate's CV?
When I see a candidate's CV, I don't look anymore about his professional career, because today's, careers are more dynamic, they are more complex. I look for things where I can read out what are the interests of this candidate. What is his? Where does his passion lie? I look for, let's say, internships this candidate did. I don't really look for has this candidate been with a company 2, 3, or 5 years. I even don't look at what was his job title, because I could care less about job titles. I really look about interests, and some CVs are nicely written in a way why people have chosen a selected stage in their career and what they learned out of it. So those are CVs which interest me personally.
So if, let's say, you know someone who is the president of a student organization, would you think that you could hire them?
Well, you need to talk to that person, because there could be different motivators for somebody going into that role. The interesting part definitely is if somebody goes into that role, he has an overarching, let's say, political interest in how to make things better beyond, a narrow scope of influence. That's one good thing. Secondly, you can assume that this person has good communication skills and a good empathy. Otherwise, maybe it would be difficult to be successful in such a role. So those are already points of interest to talk to that person. But at the end, it comes down, if you want to move into industry or into consultancy, can you are you aware of those little superpowers you're starting to grow? And can you convert them into something which creates also an impact in another organization? That's the key question then in an interview. And does this align with the values and beliefs we have or you bring to the table?
That's absolutely a really important point to take into consideration. And I think we could move to the next comment from Benza. He's asking, so online learning platforms such as Skillshare are getting more popular these days. So will these online courses be able to give the same level of qualifications as some university courses on the long run?
Well, it depends on certain skills. I mean, the online courses, and I used them a lot by myself, are very good for temporary, quick hands-on knowledge you need to know on certain things. That's why those online courses typically are not longer than 10, 20, 30 minutes. 1 hour is already a long course. It's almost too long. University courses are there to teach you with fundamental skills you need regardless of the job you are in. It's almost like getting the next professional maturity stage. So they have a different purpose behind there. So a combination of both is a good thing. If you're on the job, online courses are better to be embedded in your daily work because you can use them in the morning, in the train, at the airport, when travel starts again, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. But I actually want to know when it comes to, let's say, because we mentioned CV, so I want to know when it comes to motivation letters. First, do you think we should actually be sending ones, or do you think it should just be the CV? And second, what is like one thing that would actually make you hire someone if they mention it on their motivation letter?
Well, on the motivation letter, what triggers me personally is if somebody expresses really his passion and his interest. His motivation, why he's contacting Deloitte. So that's one thing which triggers me. But then the rest follows through a video or phone conversation. So for me, a CV is enough in order to have it. I don't need a motivation letter. But very often in the motivation letter, you can express your interest and passion, which you cannot do in a CV because that typically follows a kind of reproducible format. CVs today look really the same. There's no differentiator anymore. You cannot judge from the quality of a CV today. You can judge from the content of a motivation letter and from the quality of the first conversation. First impression counts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think exactly the motivation letter or the cover letter offers like that first impression chance. So you might want to show your true colors in the motivation letter and just stand out, because you don't want to be just one in a pile of 100 similar motivation letters copied from somewhere, right?
Yes, but you stand out. If you really think about your honest motivation and why you want to get in touch with a certain organization, the way you phrase your motivation letter will help you standing out. Because the others who just produce motivation letters en masse, sending them to 100 organizations, they will not have that differentiation. They will not have that reflection for every organization.
Exactly. You want to stand out and you want to give the employer the opportunity to say, okay, this is something new that I haven't seen before. I'm curious to meet this person on an interview, for example. And that could open so many doors. Well, I think we can move to our next comment from Martin. He's asking, would it be possible for employees to always be working from home office in the future, even if they cannot see their coworkers or their bosses personally?
Well, technically, it would be possible. We have seen this in the Corona times now. But the question is, does it make sense at every time to work only from home? I mean, the good thing is we learned now that remote work helps us, especially if you know your team members and your colleagues. If you are new to a team, new to a company, it is a little bit hard if you don't have live, face-to-face, on-the-ground meetings with someone in order to make that initial bonding. So there I would still recommend to do your onboardings, to do your first guiding tours, to do your first co-working sessions live, physically together. And even in Corona times, you can do this with the safety restrictions perfectly.
Exactly. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and keep the social distance.
Keep the distance. Absolutely. That works perfectly.
I like how we're having almost the same words. We're completing each other's sentences. I like this.
Scary.
Yeah, it makes me think that you are really a chat robot, or aren't you?
Yes, maybe I am. I'm reflecting your words and the tonality of your voice and responding to that directly.
Oh my God. Okay, you're creeping me out, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to stay professional and not freak out or start crying in front of the camera like I usually do. All right. So one other thing that I would like to actually take your opinion on, when it comes to like Deloitte as a company, what are you looking for exactly as, let's say, and no matter the position, I'm just like general skills or let's say the type of people that you're looking for. So if I have a friend, me for example, I'm still unemployable, cannot pay for things that I don't need. So what are my chances to get in Deloitte if I like what should I obtain as skills, or what are you looking for as a person that I can guarantee like that I could get in?
We look for skills of people who can good work in teams, right? That means we look for people who have a strong ability of self-reflection and self-regulation, because you don't want to have too many egos coming together, because that is not a productive team. So that's one element. The second piece is we look for people who really like to tap into new grounds, go on uncharted territories, who don't need a proven methodology everywhere as a blueprint, but they can just really think themselves through, where am I now and what shall I do as my next step in a situation. So people who are brave, courageous, who like to take risks, but with a smart twinkle on that. We also look for people who have a passion to continuously learn, just for their own interest, not because somebody tells them you have to go to a training course.
I actually check all those boxes so far,
so very good.
I will be very upset.
You should apply.
Especially that we had a conversation. I can like use you as a referee,
Absolutely. Refer to the chatbot.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually having a workshop tomorrow with Deloitte as well on the future salesperson. So that's going to be, I think, an addition to my CV. So there's no chance I'm not going to get accepted into your company, right?
There you go. You're on good grounds already.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we're almost at the end of our conversation. But before we wrap up, I want to know your final piece of advice for anybody who is looking for a job during these really special circumstances.
I think don't get worried, really, honestly, because there will be plenty of jobs out there. Even after Corona, during Corona, there are plenty of jobs out there. Some organizations are still in a kind of wake coma in order to find out what they should do. But honestly, we will recover and we will thrive even stronger than we have before. Economy always has done that. And with the technology, you will even have plenty of other jobs than you even can think of today. So that's one thing.
Yeah,
so don't panic.
Reassuring.
Don't panic.
It's very reassuring.
And the second piece is really think about and reflect upon your own, superpowers, to be honest. Where are you really good at, regardless of the situation? Because this is something you can rely on. And that's something you can bring forward to your employer, your future employer. And you can demonstrate it in any situation. He can test you on that. And you will, without preparation, perfectly deliver success there.
Great, that's really reassuring to hear. I'm so glad that we had you with us today. So with you saying that we should be displaying our superpowers, I think it's time for me to start learning a new language.
There you go.
Maybe that would help make me more employable, but you never know. All right, so thank you so much, Dr. Udo, for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I'm really, really hoping that you are not a chat robot, because I sympathize too much with you, and there's a connection. So if you're a robot, I'm gonna start questioning my life.
No, Tassi, I can promise you I'm not a chat robot, because that's a weakness still, thank God, that they cannot really play empathy. That doesn't work.
They can't play empathy yet.
Yet, exactly. So you never know,
yeah.
But we will see.
All right, well, I guess we'll be fine.
No, thanks very much. I enjoyed very much talking to you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So guys, don't forget to download the BrainBar app, browse the coolest jobs at Future Jobs on our website, and also register to our workshops. Like I said, I'm hosting actually just one tomorrow. So we still have some seats available, so make sure you register as soon as possible. Next up, we're gonna get a really interesting conversation because we will know how data science will rewrite the history of mankind. See you soon.